Hello, my name is Maria Bezubova and you're at my channel Fertilizers Jazz. Here we talk about events, trends, technologies in the world of fertilizers and agriculture. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, and let's jazz! Today is May 5 and this is a weekly markets update. Let's have a look at the news of week 18 and see what are the next trends. Urea market is swinging from one side to another. The largest news of last week was potential resuming of Chinese exports, and as soon as of mid-May. There is no official confirmation from the authorities yet, only rumors that it will be some quota system. General volume for exports during May-September might be 3 to 4 million tons. But that's it. Of course, it's a news not only of the week, but of the year, I would say. China was out of the international market for more than 16 months. Exports in 2024 were only 260,000 tons versus 4.2 million in 23. So coming back to the market during a period of decreasing international prices will bring a lot of pressure to the market and drag prices down much more. But first, let's see the official confirmation and clarification of the exports mechanism. The other news arrived from the US, from President Trump, announced in this social network, which becomes kind of an official thing. He wrote that Iranian products, including oil and petrochemicals, are under ban now for any country or buyer who wants to do business with the US. Under immediate ban, as it was stated. However, no official clarification or regulation was issued yet, and I haven't seen any comments from the US administration. So again, we will need to wait and see how the situation develops. Other than that, main arena of international activity was in the US, same as last week. Prices continued to escalate, however, traders were not able to secure additional volumes that will arrive in a timely manner. Loaded barges traded at $520 per short ton, but June barges traded already at $405. Inland prices also increased dramatically by $35 per short ton. The supply remains constrained. The April imports are more than 40%, lagging behind the last year. And taking into account higher corn acreage, it looks like a catastrophe approaching. European demand has been almost finalized, and reset will be conducted later when all unknowns will be clear. There were no confirmed sales from North Africa last week, but Egyptian producers tried to put their target around $400 FOB, clearly unachievable amid current market mood. In the Black Sea, SOCAR tender is closed, but no confirmed figures are available, at least yet. In Ukraine, Aztiem production was suspended last week because of Russian shelling of Cherkasy region that damaged gas supply infrastructure. For now, it is unclear when production might come back on stream. Turkish demand, which was anyway slow, lagging behind last year by about 150,000 tons of imports, evaporated on the news about Chinese will be back. 2 cargoes from Iran and 1 from Russia is expected in May. Other than that, discussions will resume upon clarity regarding market direction, perhaps. Iranian producers sold 2 cargoes at $337 FOB, which is much lower than their official targets. And even this level will not be achievable anymore after news about China and unclarity regarding US regulations about Iranian exports in general. Apart from that, sad news about huge explosion in the Iranian port, which is near Bandar Abbas, arrived last week. This explosion took lives and injured hundreds of people, but fertilizers exports flow seem to be not affected. Middle East producers haven't reported any fresh sales last week, and their indications remained in the high 390s. Of course, China being back to the market will shake the regional balance, and significant downward correction will happen for sure. In Southeast Asia, Indonesian pupuk awarded in total 3 lots of 45,000 tons each at $402 FOB level following latest tender. Majority of this product most likely will be destined for Australia. More Australian demand might emerge in upcoming weeks, as some rains spurred the optimism for need of distributors restocking at some time later in the season. Latin American markets remain in off-season. In Brazil, prices around $400 to $405 CFR fluctuated for some recent sales. But after China news was revealed, bids have immediately retreated to 370 CFR level. Also, there were rumors that Iranian producers reached some fresh agreements with Brazilian buyers, but this is unconfirmed. In Ethiopia, EABC issued several awards following its latest tender, up to 5 cargoes as per market reports. The prices vary from 375 FOB Baltics to 406 FOB Oman to $421 FOB North Africa. In total, this would cover 260,000 tons for May through June, which is about 40% of total initial inquiry. Paper values moved nervously following market news. Egypt FOB future price for May and June increased by $15 and $20 respectively. Arab Gulf FOB future price also increased by $10 for May and $27 for June. Brazil CFR dropped for May but increased for June by $13. Nola value for May increased more by $20, but June value dropped by $20, exactly as we discussed a week ago. In ammonium sulfate segment, activity decreased ahead of holiday celebrations in Europe and Asia, while other regions like the US continued to see spring demand as application and crop sowing make steady progress. In China, prices and demand are steady, as there continues to be discussions over an upcoming shortage in supply because of lower caprolactam production. More compactor factories are collecting volumes to fulfill anticipated orders from Brazil, with imports to the country projected to continue at this pace during May. Standard product was sold at $155 to $57 FOB level. For the Black Sea, there was no new business ascertained, and values are unchanged. While in Europe, participation was low ahead of the holiday, with AS prices holding steady. For the US, although most of the market attention was on domestic urea movement and those rising values, ammonium sulfate prices remained steady, and there continues to be buying interest seen with fresh compact volumes concluded in Nola. In Brazil, about 20,000 tons of Chinese compacted product was sold at $190 CFR in the beginning of the week. But after the news about China, bids dropped by $20 and activity was put on hold. The nitrates market was poised for new season prices, which are expected to come significantly lower than current prices. LAT nitrogen started the trend by reducing CIN prices in Germany last week to 305 euros CIF. Demand has reduced as the spring season nears its closing. Demand was also impacted by a lack of rain in many regions of Europe and the UK. It has rained only sporadically, giving farmers a brief window to get onto the fieldwork. In the UK, nitrates demand is now only for top-up application. In Germany, Poland, the Baltics, demand has thinned due to lack of rain and as people await new season prices. Activity within the UAN segment was very limited in Europe due to off-season and ahead of holidays. In the US, UAN prices increased more on the back of limited supply and growing urea price. Nola FOB price climbed to the average of $355 per short ton. Sales in the river ports hit $400 per short ton. Availability in southern plains and western corn belt remained almost non-existent. Ammonia market trend remained bearish, and it was confirmed by a newly settled price at Tampa for May at the level of $415, which is $20 lower versus April. Price does not include duty that will be paid by the buyer upon delivery. This is exactly the price of the deal conducted between OCP and Tramo several weeks ago for May shipment, no duty though. June deal for OCP was conducted already at $400, so the market expects this trend to continue. In fact, even turnarounds in the East seem not to be able to bring relief to the market. Ample supply in the West most likely will offset the large part of Eastern tons that will not come to the market. Demand in Europe is subdued and will slowly decrease over the next weeks. In Turkey, prices between 390 and 400 CFR were indicated for May shipments from the West. The only active buying destination was India last week. Up to 50,000 tons of Iranian or Omanian origin are rumored to be on the way to the country. However, no price information is available. There will be more demand from India as phosphate supply is a painful question. In the phosphate market, There is uncertainty on the resumption of Chinese exports. Rumors circulate that DAP and MAP quota for 2025 is under discussion now and expected to be opened as soon as mid-May. However, same as with urea, no official announcement was done yet. Local Chinese demand comes to its end, so it might be a logical move. Following weeks of activity, India has slowed down, and more price direction is expected next week, when NFL and RCF close DAP tenders, each of them for 100,000 tons. RCF announced a tender last week, NFL prolonged tender until May 6. Despite the latest cap put on the CFR price by the government, next purchase price is expected to be higher than that cap. Anyway, taking into account low stocks, India will need to import significant amount more. The G2G deal between India and OCP seems to reach the finish line. Very soon, the market will see the results of this formula-based deal for supply of 1.2 million of DAP and 800,000 tons of TSP. European demand is low, but prices continue to climb. The autumn season will be tough, as prices will definitely increase more before that, plus levies at Russian products most likely will kick in. And in the meantime, last week Russian government has increased the export quota for nitrogen and complex fertilizers to nearly 20 million tons, all in all, for the period June-November. Tunisian producers sharply increased DAP offers to the level $690 to $95 FOB. Nola evidenced quite limited activity, and prices largely remained unchanged week on week. DAP barges were traded at $640 per short ton for May and $652 prompt. MAP was traded at $645 per short ton for June-July. Inland distribution sales seem to be active, and there are indications that summer refill purchases might start earlier this year. At the same time, affordability remains at the worst level since 2008. Brazil buyers were quite actively inquiring, but even $700 CFR level seems too high, taking into account low affordability versus current crop prices. Buyers are looking into forward purchasing, fearing that prices will increase even more. However, proposals are now at the level $10 to $15 higher versus buyers' bids. Ethiopian ABC awarded Mid-Gulf a lot in its latest tender. It was L1 offer at $696 FOB at Dabia, with lake and June 15 to 20. Moving to the fundamentals. European natural gas futures rose to almost 33 euros per megawatt hour on Friday, driven by cooler weather forecasts and optimism from China signal it may reopen trade talks with the US. The news boosted global markets, including energy. In Northwest Europe, colder temperatures are expected to raise gas demand in the next few days. Attention is also turning to upcoming EU talks on reducing gas storage targets, with proposals suggesting storage levels of 75 to 76% full, well below recent years' averages. EU storage is currently almost 40% full. US natural gas futures increased sharply by 15% in a week to the level of $3.5 per MMBtu, driven by a drop in output and record LNG exports. Production has fallen over the past 5 days to a 2-month low, while LNG exports hit a record average of 16 billion cubic feet in April, driven by increased flows to the Plaquemine facility. Looking ahead, meteorologists projected temperatures would remain mostly warmer than normal through May 17. Analysts suggest continued mild weather and high output could lead to record injections in May. Storage levels are now near seasonal norms. Agricultural commodities future prices again evolved differently. Wheat futures rebounded to higher than $5.2 per bushel, supported by technical buying and persistent dryness across parts of the Canadian prairies. Concerns over tightening global supplies also bolstered prices, with the USDA projecting 24-25 year-ending stocks at 260 million metric tons, which is 9 million lower versus previous year. While rainfall is expected in Canada, it's unlikely to meaningfully replenish soil moisture. Canada's wheat output is forecast to edge up slightly. However, price gains are being limited by improving crop conditions in the U.S. Southern Plains, where drought coverage in Kansas has significantly decreased from the previous week. Corn futures drifted more than 17 cents lower this week on a lack of bullish headlines and continued strength in planting progress on large acreage expectations. Planting weighed on the future outlook and compressed any positive vibe related to a tighter old crop balance sheet. Most states west of the Mississippi River in the US have progressed well ahead of average pace, while states east of the river lagged due to wetter soil conditions. In Argentina, corn harvest pace continues to run well ahead of average, at the top end of the 5-year range. Also, US ethanol production rose to over than 1 million barrels per day last week, plus 5.4% versus last year. In general, May and June tend to be the months where corn futures historically rally and put in seasonal highs. All eyes will remain on planting pace and crop condition ratings in the coming weeks. The soybean market remains uncertain, not giving much sense of which direction it will go. Future price fluctuated on the level of $10.5 per bushel. The lack of new information for traders is starting to weigh on the market. Exports are being the 5-year average, but ahead of last year's pace. And favorable planting conditions in the US aren't helping move to the market. US and China continue to hold the tariffs on each other. However, there are weak signs that trade tensions between the US and China are beginning to thaw. Chinese officials have stated the US has reached out to Beijing a number of ways looking to begin trade negotiations. They also indicate they're evaluating whether to accept the US offer to negotiate. So, tariff storyboard, as well as final acreage that will be revealed on June 30, will be key for the rest of the season. Moving to the shipping industry. Containerized freight index again decreased slightly versus last week. Rates of container shipments from China to the US and Europe dropped, which is driven by continuous uncertainty regarding US tariffs' effect at global trade. Market analysts expect the prices will correct further downwards despite positive signals regarding US-China potential trade negotiations restart. The Baltic Exchange Dry Index continued improving. With one of the largest shipping events in Geneva and the Labor Day holiday, it was a rather subdued week overall. The Capesize market maintained a generally firm tone, supported by a tightening of tonnage in both the Pacific and North Atlantic, alongside a steady flow of cargo. In Panamax segment, the week was characterized by fragmented activity. In the Atlantic Basin, fresh demand was minimal, but with a modest tonnage count, rates remained steady, and similar for Pacific. In Ultra Supramax segment, the Atlantic lacked much fresh impetus, especially from the US Gulf and continent, although the South Atlantic remained rather positional. At the same time, sentiment remained poor from the Asian area as demand waned from Indonesia. For Handysize segment, it was a challenging week, with rates in both the Atlantic and Pacific regions facing downward pressure. To sum up, news about potential China comeback to urea market as soon as in May, with a significant amount of 3 to 4 million tons of product through September, immediately weighed on market sentiment. However, let's wait for the official confirmation from Chinese government first. Potential US sanctions tightening targeted at all petrochemicals products from Iran, perhaps including fertilizers, might be another joker that will again change the global urea card layout. But same as with China, we need to wait for official information. US importers were desperately trying to secure prompt volumes last week, but purchasing new lots is already a very high risk. Thus, June future price for Nola dropped significantly. Phosphates prices continued climbing, and seems like Indian government will not be able to keep the price cap set a week ago for future purchases. But it will depend again on China, as DAP and MAP export resuming is being discussed. On the production cost side, sulfur price increased more last week, supporting bullish trend in phosphates. Ammonia price dropped more, with new Tampa level set at $15 lower versus April, as well as nitrates prices. Gas price in Europe hovered at the similar level, while in the US price increased due to production reduction and record LNG shipments. Wheat future price rebounded after a dip a week ago, while corn prices corrected more downwards. Container shipping prices haven't changed, while bulk shipping activity improved more across segments. So, let's see what is next around the corner. But it will be already next week. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, push the bell in order not to miss any updates, and see you soon.